because of our traditions, but it's always good to keep it and go back and engage our imaginations in a very fresh way to look at what it means, right? And he is introduced as the Messiah, not coming in power and great, glory, but rather he comes to a backward nation, in a backward town in the backward nation, to a poor family. And so we see when he comes into the world, already he's stacked, the cards are stacked against him for a position of power and authority and really the ability to even engage and change society, right? He's basically tied his hands behind his back. So he comes into this small, poor family, and it's a beautiful story, and we celebrate it every Christmas. But understand that this is the King of Heaven. This is the man who will bring heaven to earth. And so he comes, and he plants himself there in this backward country, in a small town, to a poor family. Then we don't hear much from him for about 30 years. And then as he comes on the scene, Matthew is showing us this King of Heaven, and he goes and he gets baptized, and immediately the Father says, "This is my Son, with whom I am well pleased." And after he comes out of the water, he immediately is driven into the wilderness. And what he does there in the wilderness is, in a very a concentrated way, he shows us heaven. He shows us how and what he is going to be as the Messiah, and how he's going to bring heaven to earth. First of all, we see that he subdues the flesh. He fasts for 40 days. And then he's tempted, to eat. And he says, "No, not until the Father says go. I'm not going to do that." So what he does is he shows there that the flesh, he will ignore, or he will subdue the flesh and its desires to what God wants, rather than having the flesh boss him around, right? The next thing is we see that the enemy comes, and the enemy is tempting him the whole time. And what he does again is he shows, no, I don't have to, I will not obey the voice of the enemy. The enemy has no power over me. He can tempt me, he can do all these things, but he doesn't give into it. And so when those things that would destroy his life and the people around him, when the enemy comes and says, "Let's do it this way, let's do it that way," and remember, none of these temptations were implicitly sinful. They were sinful merely because it was not the way that God would have him to live. But yet he subjected himself to the Word of God, to the power of God, rather than the enemy. And so he showed that when he comes to establish his kingdom, he will overcome the flesh, or he has power over the flesh, he has power over the enemy, and then the world system, right? And we saw some of what he was tempted with in the world system was, fame and, doing the Superman off the temple and, doing these other things. But he said, no, that's obviously not the way the Father would have it. I'm not going to do it that way. And so Jesus comes, and in a very concentrated way, there in the wilderness, we're introduced to the King of Heaven and how he's going to bring heaven on earth. And it's nowhere near like what I would have written the script. I would have had much more drama, much more car explosions, a little bit of ninja stuff, right? But not cheesy ninja, Anyway, so, but what we have is that when he comes, we've just been introduced to this King of Heaven, this Messiah that's going to rule over the world. But what we see is it's all about the Spirit, right? He takes all the things around him and he says, no, these things will be subjected to my Spirit and the Spirit of God. These things will not shape my spirit. The Spirit will be that which rules. It will not be that which is rule. And so So there we've been introduced to Jesus, and we've taken a month or so or more to look at that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to see the citizens of the King of Heaven who will populate this kingdom. And Matthew, in a very, here, please open up with to Matthew chapter 4. We're going to see in a very real way and in a very dramatic, well, it's not a lot of drama here, but a very physical way of who will populate the kingdom and how and why. Now, before we get into that, let me throw some pixelated pictures at you. Oh, you're killing me. Thank you. Okay, so this is basically Israel under the Roman dominion as Jesus in Jesus's day, right? So we have Jerusalem right there above my finger, about a third of the way up. Judea, if you think of Israel as lots of rocks and wilderness and a dry place, what you're thinking of is the Judean wilderness where Jerusalem is, down to the Red Sea. That's what that's like, right? Bethlehem was where he was born, right? So that's where all that took place. Now, when Jesus came back from Egypt, he moved back to Nazareth, which you go all the way up to about a third way down from the top, and you'll see Nazareth, right? And that's the Galilee region. Samaria was right in between the Galilee region and the Judean region. Samaria, they were kind of, well, we'll get into those guys, but they didn't like each other, the Jews and the Samaritans, and we'll flesh that out as it comes. But you'll see the Samaritans are right in the middle of the north and the south. And then let's focus in on the Galilee region. This is the Galilee region because when Jesus comes to minister, he's going to go to the Galilee region. If you think of, if you want to think of the geography, think of Seattle as kind of, the hub of the Northwest, right? And then you think of Forks as a bunch of hicks, right? It's true though, right? It's true, a little bit. So anyway, but here's the thing. It's way more beautiful in Forks than Seattle, right? Because they're surrounded by those mammoth trees and everything, and it's a way, that's kind of like what it was, right? They're in the Galilee region, and you see around the Sea of Galilee, it's a beautiful place filled with hicks wearing Carhartts. And just kidding. Kind of. So, but I'm joking somewhat just to let you know this is kind of how it plays out. You'll understand this as we go through the Gospels, because and this is what I love. Jesus didn't go to Seattle. He went to Forks, right? That's how he's going to change the world. It's an amazing thing, right? He doesn't go to the center of the hub of culture and power, and he goes to this little backward, region that's beautiful, a little bit like Sequim, right? That's why we're better than Seattle, amen? And so anyway, but so he goes. What we're going to see today is unfortunately he's going to preach a sermon in his hometown of Nazareth so bad that they're going to try to kill him. This is his first sermon. They take him up to a hill to kill him. Rough crowd. You ever get the idea that your family doesn't understand who you are? Like, my family didn't know I'm the Hans Bailey. They just didn't get it. They just thought, it's just Hans. And so, same with Jesus, right? In Nazareth, they're like, I changed your swaddling clothes, you little punk. What are you telling me? So anyway, we don't get that in Matthew. You have to go to Luke for that one. But in Nazareth, after his first sermon, he's like, I better get out of Dodge. Not going to happen. He can't minister there because of the way people view him, because they become so familiar with him. And so what he does is he then goes over here to Capernaum, right? You see Capernaum right at the north side of the Sea of Galilee, and that's where Peter's house is. He's going to kind of headquarters there in Capernaum. And what he's going to do is he's going to minister. His first stint of ministry is he'll be going, there's about 200 towns and villages there in the Galilee region. And so he will, in a very physically strenuously way, be going to all these different towns and preaching the gospel and doing miracles, right? And so that's what that's what it is. Let's look at a couple of pictures of some of the things you're going to see here or hear about. This is a synagogue. You'll notice this is a cross section here. The in the middle where you see that strip of I don't know, it must be rocks or whatever. In the middle of that is where they would have the Torah and where they would have services. And then you'll see the seating around that. Those are where people sat. It would hold about 200 to 300 people at most. So that was a synagogue. Let's go next one. This is a fishing boat. So notice they weren't small, right? So this is a fishing boat. This is a school bus. So the fishing boat's about as big as a school bus. And that's how they would have weights. See the net over there to the right? They'd have weights on the end. They'd throw it in, go down, it would collapse, and then they would bring up the fish. And so let's go to the next one. This is something besides me to look at. Yay, you're welcome. So let's get into the scriptures. Hopefully it kind of helps me to understand the big picture as all these names and are coming to me from the text. So hopefully it helps you. All right. Matthew chapter 4, verse 12. Now when he heard that John had been arrested, he withdrew into Galilee. And leaving Nazareth, he went and lived in Capernaum by the sea, in the territory of Zebulun and Naphtali, so that what was spoken by the prophet Isaiah might be fulfilled, the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, the way of the sea beyond the Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles, the people dwelling in darkness have seen a great light, and those dwelling in the region and the shadow of death, on them a light has dawned. Okay, so Matthew picks a very particular Old Testament passage to quote. And what he's doing is he's showing the people who will receive Jesus. Now, after the death and the resurrection of Jesus and then the teaching of the epistles, we understand everybody is in a darkness, is in darkness, whether they understand it or not. And those who are saved are those who actually realize it. They are awakened to the darkness. And they look around them and they see death and destruction around them. And they realize, I need light because I don't understand what's going on around me. Little reality escapes them, escapes me, escapes everyone. These are the people who will receive the light of Jesus. Because the message is what? Repent. Stop doing what you were doing, and I want you to do something that you don't want to do. To do that, you've got to see and understand that that what you're doing is bringing death and destruction to your life and the people around you. You have to see the darkness and the shadow of death before you want the light, because what Jesus is going to ask of you is too much otherwise to do and to follow. Let me explain again by this is I'm eternally grateful for this, even though I did not like it. But when I was, you'll hear me talk about when I was out at surfing in the mouth of the Elwha, and I was pushed out to sea, right? And this is the stages were like this. It was Thanksgiving Day. It was beautiful, clear. I'm out at the Elwha. It's a beautiful day. The sun was shining. You're watching the eagles fly over. You're out in the waves, and just a tremendous time. And actually, I stop and I'm looking at the mountains, and I'm actually praying. This is how cruel God is sometimes. I'm actually praying. I'm a little prayer concert there, and then I turn around and I look, and I'm like a quarter mile away from the land. I'm like, oh. And I'm like, and here's the stages I go through. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be that guy. Right? And I start, paddling back. But here's the problem. And I knew a little bit about the world. I know that when you're in a riptide, you don't go against it. You go across it, and then you go into shore. And so when you're out at the Elwha and the river is flooding as it was, you can see a very definite, this is where the river is going out, and this is where you're in the ocean. So I would cross that line, and then pretty soon I was right back where I was, right? And at first I'm like, I'm not going to be that guy. And then I'm like, God, don't make me that guy. Please, dear God, don't make me that guy. It's truly. And I'm like, come on, God, please. And then after about 45 minutes, I'm like, God, I'm that guy. and this, I was just like, save me. You can even put my name in the paper. Just save me. And let me tell you, I don't mind being in the paper, but not for that. Not for that, right? This is what waking up to darkness and destruction is like. You come to a reality to where you usher pride to the door and let them out. Say, get out of here. I need saved. I'm in trouble. I don't know my way out. And see, I was in a beautiful environment. It was a beautiful day. I was on a surfboard. I was with good friends. But the world was going to kill me because I didn't understand it. Right? There are people who wake up to the understanding that even in a beautiful place, you're going to die. The world is not a safe place. It's just not. And Matthew introduces us to the citizens of the kingdom are these people who wake up and they see the shadow, especially the shadow of death. And they see it around them. And they may even be in a beautiful Galilee region, or they may be in the Northwest. It's one of the most beautiful places in the world. But you realize the reality of the situation is if you don't understand what's going on around you, you're going to die in that beautiful place. And it will kill you, right? It's what's, the water was not like, hey, Hans, don't do this. Hey, buddy, wake up. Don't have your little prayer concert on the beach, dummy. Don't do that here. It didn't do that. It just took me out, right? It had no feelings for me. It didn't care. It wasn't, when I got out, I didn't see it crying. It had salt in it, and it was water, but it wasn't crying. The world is not trying to save me. There's only one thing, really, that can save me, right? That's the creator of that. But he's got to illuminate, right? And so what Matthew does is he immediately shows us who are going to people his kingdom. Because, and this is why, and you're like, come on, why does it have to be so dramatic? And as we get into it, you're going to see what it's going to cost you. And you're going to be like, whoa, that's a lot. Lord, you're asking a lot. Well, you have to see the death and destruction around you, because what's going to happen is God's going to say, okay, do you want life? Yes. Well, it's nothing of what you think it is. You have to give up what you think. You have to take on what I think. You must usher pride to the door and kick it out. It has no place in my kingdom. So you can't share your life with pride and me at the same time. It's one or the other. And man, I tell you, when you realize, don't try to beat up pride, right? Because if you beat up pride, what happens? You're proud. I beat up pride, you can't. It's like one of the endless circles. I beat up pride. Now I'm proud of that. Oh, crap. You can't do it. What you've got to do is you just got to usher it to the door and kick it out. You can't conquer it. But here's the thing. You awaken to it when you realize, and everybody's not here all the time, right? These are not, I don't, sometimes I think that, people come into the church and you'll hear me preach this and we always place ourselves in these people's situation. Well, you might not be there. Maybe you are at a place to where you've seen the death and destruction around you and you've already committed yourself to Jesus, and now you're in a series of what we call sanctification, or going toward the light, having the light into your soul, and then, living within that reality, right? And that's not the same thing as what these guys are at. What I'm talking about is an awakening to salvation and your need for it, right? These are the people. Now, I'm going to couch it, here at the end of the service. I'm going to couch it because I think sometimes we get lulled into sleep a little bit. Maybe allow some darkness into our hearts that we need to vanquish. But understand that these people were at a place to where they totally just did not get it. Now, maybe you're new to Christianity this morning, or maybe you've been around Christians your whole life but have never really understood it. This is good to understand anyway, because we need to wake up to this, right? So anyway, these are the people that are going to respond, that are going to people the kingdom of heaven. Okay. And this is why, verse 17, from that time, Jesus began to preach, saying, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Now, as I really want to change the tone of my teaching, and this is why. Because I'm good at pointing out the inconsistencies of us Christians, right? I think I'm gifted at that, right? But here's what I really want, is for us to see what we trade. We trade dog food for steak, right? We've got this life, and we've got this idea of what life is and what it should be. And it's kind of Alpo. And God's like, hey, I got a steak for you, buddy. Why are you eating Alpo? Because it's cheaper. And it comes with its own gravy. And don't you remember that? If you're old enough, you'll remember. It comes with its own gravy. Does it still? No one knows. Do they still sell it? It's not. Range-free Alpo. So anyway, but God's like, hey, I got this for you. Why are you going for that? And so as I go through this, understand this is that God is going to require something of you, but it's never at your loss. How many of us would love to be able to love people that we don't? I would love to be able to just engagingly and lovingly interact with people wherever I go, and know the right thing to do and the right attitude to have, and not to have this cloud, this pall, this fear that the world tries to create over my head. Jesus has come to bring heaven to earth. And heaven is not a fearful place to live. Heaven is not a place to where you live day in and day out stressed out. It is not a place that is subjected to the flesh, to the political system, to the fashion system of the world, to the whatever it is, to the enemy, certainly. Heaven's not bound by those things. Heaven just brushes them off and goes about its business. Citizens of heaven are not in bondage to those things. And the more that heaven comes in and illuminates our life, the more we brush that stuff off. And it's a good thing. But it's difficult to leave the Alpo for the steak for some particular reason. Or maybe I should say, Meat product. Anyway, let's just keep going. You might be thinking, I like spam. Okay, verse 18. Let's look at, first of all, these are the people who will make it into that kingdom. While walking by the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, who was called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." Immediately they left their nets and followed him. And going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James the son of Zebedee and John his brother, in the boat with Zebedee their father, mending their nets, and he called them. Immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. Now, if we only had Matthew, as the account of the Gospels, you'd think, well, this is kind of weird. It looks like just this traveling rabbi walked up to these guys and said, "Hey, what's your name?" "Matt." "Hi." "Jesus." "Yeah, Jesus." "Follow me." "Okay, I quit." It's not how it went. He had dealings with these guys before. He's been teaching. He's been showing them the power of God. They've seen and they've understood that Jesus, and we'll get to this in a minute, that Jesus has power over the world, over the flesh, Jesus shows, I've got heaven. Now, when he comes to them, he says, do you want heaven? Do you want to follow me? Do you want to be a citizen of this kingdom? They said, yes. And he says, okay, quit. What? Everything. Okay. Because that's what it's going to cost them. These are the people who are citizens. This is the citizen of the kingdom. There's going to be a lot of people who follow Jesus who never become citizens of the kingdom. They love the miracles. They love the show. They love the idea of heaven. But there's a problem. Jesus is offensive. Jesus is offensive because we love the world, not God. We love the way the world does things, not the way God does things. Now, if we were inherently good, we would not need to be saved. This world needs a Savior. It needs salvation. Why? Because we're not good. We have to change. So God says, okay, I'm going to come down, I'm going to live, I'm going to show you how to change. We love the idea of change, we just don't like to change. Right? We all want to not pollute the world. We just want to do it in our SUVs with our flat screen TVs and, with all the things that ruin the world, right? I mean, honestly, how many people who really want to be green are walking? Most of them are driving, right? So we all have these ideas of what we want. We just don't want to do it. We just kind of want to and have it done. And Jesus is like, no, I didn't come to do that. I've come to lead you into heaven. Follow me. Give up everything. And they're like, whoa. Great idea. Difficult decision to make. Now here's the difficulty. The difficulty is just in rearranging what you think is good. Trust me. No. Trust him that he knows what good is, and you don't. That's the thing, right? And don't we come into conflict with this all the time? People will say, things about God. They'll be like, well, if God doesn't want this in heaven, well, I don't want to go to heaven. It's like, whoa, you don't order up heaven. We've been trying to order heaven down here for as long as we've been around, and we haven't gotten it right. For some reason, we think that we in particular are the only ones that really want heaven, and if everybody else would get on board with us, it'd be good, right? Amen? That's the way I think. That is truly the way I think. If everybody would drive the way I drive, everybody would be happier. And the roundabouts would work. I know. So, but salvation is this. I don't know. I must follow him. He is God, not me. And this is the thing. these guys, and these are the guys who make it. And here's the amazing thing, is that Jesus will come and he'll give everybody a free lunch, right? He'll give everybody free lunch and they'll follow him. Yeah, we like Jesus' free lunch. We like Jesus' miracle. Miracles are fun. But then he'll turn around. And I counted it. In one paragraph, after he feeds them, shows them miracles, one paragraph, once I counted, he turned around and he looked at everybody and he said, you've got to eat my flesh and drink my blood. And at first they're like, oh, okay. Obviously a metaphor. Please explain. No. Eat my flesh, drink my blood. Oh. Eat my flesh, drink my blood. Come on, man. You ever get nervous in a message? You know, you're like, come on, get off this point, let's go, let's go, let's go. He just keeps poking. You know, he's like, no, eat my flesh, drink my blood. Eat my flesh, drink my blood. Eat. And they're all like, come on, explain that. No. You know what they do? They leave. And then he looks at his disciples and he says, what are you still doing here? Idiots? and they say, well, and this is the way that I understand it. You go back and read it, John chapter 6. But how I look at that and how I understand it is with this inflection, they all say, wow, what you say is hard. I don't like it. I don't get it. But I know that you know about life. So there I go. I don't like it. I don't get it. But you're the King of Heaven, so I guess I got to do it. Why do you do that? Because you've given up everything else. You've got no way of retreat. You've burned your bridge. You've said, I'm all in, right? Because you want to go back. You want to go back. Understand this. If miracles save people, and if you were just to go back and be able to see Jesus do those miracles and stuff, and you would think, oh, well, then I will know, and then I will follow, and if Jesus would just do miracles now, it doesn't work. This is what works, total commitment. Now, it's not blind faith. Don't get me wrong. That's the existentialists. Even though they always blame us, we don't go for blind faith. We have the scriptures. You can look at Jesus, you can read about Jesus, you can contemplate Jesus and say, okay, yeah, I buy that one, or no, I don't. You have plenty of proof. You've got loads to read, to contemplate, to study, to meditate on, to grapple with. We've got plenty of proof of who Jesus is and what he did and how he did it. And then he says, do you want to follow? Because if you want to follow, this is it. This is what it'll cost you. Everything. Now, I love the way that he made the play on words. You were fishermen, now I'm going to make you fishers of men. Now, that meant that they had to leave their boats. But by far and large, mostly, we Christians will not have to leave what we were doing beforehand, unless you're a pimp, right? If you're a pimp, you got to quit. I'm just saying. You should quit. That should be the first thing you do the next day. Hopefully you get that. But I don't know. Some of us are thick, right? So anyway, but mostly you're going to be doing what you were doing the day before. But here's the thing: when you wake up the next day, it's totally different. You are not. Let's say you pump gas. Let's say you live in Oregon, and they don't trust you to put gas in your own car. My gosh, and you've got to pay someone to put it in for you. And he's come. Now, the day before, you were pumping gas to get money to put, food in your stomach and, cable into your TV and whatever, you were doing. The next day, in reality, whether you woke up to this reality or not, the next day, you didn't work for money anymore. You work for God. 76 may pay your wages, but you're there as a kingdom of heaven doing what God would have you do, not what they would have you to do, but they pay your wages. All of a sudden, what you do is different. I homeschooled my kids up until they were high school, and I remember this deep desire that as we were at the morning table doing our devotion, and then I would teach them history and then Bible and stuff like that, and I'm like, I'm going to make them into Baileys. Yes. Truly. And really, it's just like awesome. And God tapped me on the shoulder and said, you dummy, we don't need more Baileys. We need more Jesus. I'm like, come on, man, a little bit of Bailey. He's like, only the good stuff. Right? But I realized that my fathering wasn't to produce Baileys, because there's a thing in us men, isn't there? When you have a kid, it perpetuates us, right? That's why we're yelling at our kids from the sidelines. Win! Be a Bailey. No mercy. Off the field, good. Not on the field, Yeah. Play harder. And what I realize is we want to perpetuate ourselves in our kids. And God was like, that's not your job. Those are mine. Those aren't yours. You bring them up to love me and be in my image, not your image. But isn't my image? No. It's flawed. You got to change that. And I'm like, oh. And I realized even a good thing could become a bad thing. As my flesh said, no, they're mine. I'm going to raise them the way I want them to. I'm going to make them into Baileys. And listen, Baileys aren't going to save the world. Trust me. You may think so. No, hands certainly not. We need more of you. You don't need more of me. You need more of Jesus. Now, you need me on Jesus, right? Because that's a good thing. But I'm not there. And mothers are not there to live for their kids. Mothers are there to bring their kids to Jesus. That's why they're there. They're not there to live for them and to serve them and to, we serve them by showing them who Jesus is, right? All of a sudden we go, and this is the thing, that the citizens of the kingdom, they wake up to a whole new reality. We were in darkness, and now we see the light and the reality of the situation. And all of a sudden we're like, wow, I need to do things differently. Not necessarily to do different things, but to do them differently. And to have a whole new understanding, right? And that's what was going on with these people, is that's why he said, leave all those things and you follow me. You've got to leave everything. Willingly leave everything and follow me, right? So, now let's look at what he was doing. Verse 23, before I get too far into it, verse 23. And he went throughout all Galilee, teaching in their synagogue, and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every disease and every affliction among the people. So his fame spread throughout all Syria, and they brought him all the sick, those afflicted with various diseases and pains, those oppressed by demons, epileptics, and paralytics, and he healed them. And great crowds followed him from Galilee and the Decapolis, and from Jerusalem and Judea, and from beyond the Jordan. So, in a nutshell, Matthew says, here's all these people, they're following him. But remember, when he was crucified on that night, there was not one with him. He did it alone. Right? All the miracles, all these other things, even though, and the reason why I'm emphasizing this is for this reason. He wants radicals. Right? He demands radicals. Not the way this world demands radicals. It's his. And what he says is, you give everything up. You be willing to give everything up. Because you need to become a citizen of a new country. And you need to renounce the other. Now you can enjoy the things of this world. They're given to you to enjoy, but not at the expense of your citizenship in heaven. if your enjoyment of these things will bring you under bondage and bring death and destruction into your life, you are not free to have those. Because God's like, don't do that. It's hurting you. It's harming you. I want you to be free. I want you to come and live a life that is full of meaning and full of freedom. And I want you to be more than what you are. I want you to be illuminated by the Spirit of God and to never be enslaved. I remember back in the 80s, and I'm a conservative. Let me translate this, because here they had to give up being fishermen, and then they had to give up their family, right? It said that they left their father, and that was big to them, right? Because family was everything to them. It would be like you. Let's say you're very successful, and everybody respects you, and you're the man or the woman, right? And everybody's like, oh, they come to you, they respect you, well, when Jesus comes to you, he says, he proves by casting out demons, by, whatever it is, he proves to you, listen, I'm the King of heaven. I rule. He proves this to you. And then he says, now become nothing. I want you to renounce all that you were, all that you thought you were. You're going to go from being the man or the woman to being nobody. Do you want to follow me? Because that's what it's going to take. You've got to give everything up. Even if people will think poorly of you for the rest of your life, it can't be too much to pay. Because the kingdom of heaven is greater than all these things. Right? So this is what he's doing. Now let me translate that to because I have a heart to see us in the church continually like these guys when Jesus approached them, right? And I see in the church some things that, I think we read this and we're somewhat comfortable because it's back then and in that culture. But let me bring it to our culture. Let's say Jesus comes to you and says, give up your political affiliation. If you're a Democrat, maybe you say, oh, you got to become a Republican. What? If you're a Republican, you say, no, you got to be a Democrat now. Lord, that's too much. They're not. Nope. Is that too much? You got to give up your kids. You got to give up your job. You're surfing. No, he wouldn't ask that. You got to give the pastor your surfboard. Does anybody hear that? Do I see? No. If Jesus came today, listen, we've got these cherished things that we hold on to. And he says, listen, if you want to be a citizen of heaven, it's glorious. It is greater and better than anything you could ever possibly imagine. But understand this, it costs you everything. You cannot hold on to that and be a citizen of heaven. Now, we as Christians must come to grips with this. Our citizenship is not in America before heaven. Your position is as a follower of Jesus Christ before you are a parent, before your job, before Jesus takes eminent pole position in every relationship that you have. Everything else spreads out around him and must serve him. You don't use these things to make him serve you. We become disciples and we come to him and we say, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, not mine. This is the citizen of heaven. Now, I'm going to have the worship team come forward. And as I do, let me say this. You'll watch these guys who've given up everything still have stupid bonehead fights through the whole time, right? They gave up everything, they followed Jesus, and then they argued about who's the greatest until Jesus died on the cross. 4 years of hanging out with Jesus, arguing behind his back about how much better you are than the next guy, right? Kind of dumb, kind of embarrassing, right? So when we say, and when I look at these guys and say, hey, these guys are what we need to be like, let me say this, is that they weren't perfect. And they had huge foibles that they had to get around and they had to deal with, and they were constantly repenting. And Jesus was constantly calling them back to the fold and saying, stop. He even called Peter Satan once, right? It's like, whoa. And it wasn't the first, right? He had been following him for a long time. And so understand that when I say what Jesus has in the citizen of heaven, he's not perfect. She's not perfect. And you're going to constantly be understanding new things. The light will become greater in your life. But understand this, don't quit. This is where we start. And we continue on into greater light, not less. Do not dig your heels in and start thinking the way the world does. We will not fix the world's problems the way the world tries to fix its problems. As a church, if you are here and you've been a Christian for a while, let's, and myself included, sorry guys. I know I banged this whole political thing a little bit, but let me tell you, in the 80s, I hated Bill Clinton. I hated it. And then George Bush got elected, and I'm like, yay! And then I saw the liberals just hated that guy. And God said, that was you, buddy. I'm like, what? I'm a Christian. I was like, I know. Oh. And you know what? When Obama got elected, I didn't cry. I didn't cringe. You know what? I want to love that guy. I want the best for him. I want him to love Jesus. I don't hate him. I don't hate Democrats. I don't hate liberals. I love conservatives because they're like-minded, but you know what? I just don't have that hate for the politics in me anymore. And I see it rampant in the church. And I say, that's not our citizen in heaven. The citizen in heaven understands we are not going to fix the world by politics. Truly, we won't fix it by politics. We're going to fix it the way Jesus fixed it. It's not just politics. It's your social, we're not going to do it through. Just what I mean to say is we as Christians need to continue to remember who the citizens of heaven are. Those who follow Jesus and what he says above all other things. So much so that we have no way to go back. We've given everything to him, and we might want to go back, because you will at times, but you can't, because you've already burned those bridges. Burn them. Not dumbly, like if you want a good reason to burn them, come talk to me. I'll give you good reasons to burn them. But I don't want you to do it as blind faith. But man, once you're there, let's quit holding on to the world. And let's grab on to Jesus and hold on to him tightly instead of the things of the world. Lord, we see how you've peopled your kingdom, and we see your power to overcome all things. Nothing holds you. Nothing could stop you. You were not a slave to the flesh, the enemy, or the world. You were free to love and be loved. Lord, bring us to that place. Whether we're here and we're not Christians, but we're seeing this and understanding this right now, or whether we are Christians and have been for decades, let us continually be here with a soft heart, open and ready to receive your citizenship in heaven and to dwell there rather than this world. Because we're going to be here, but we want better. Use us. Be with us. Love us that we may love others. Anyone here this well, if you're here this morning and you want to become a part of the kingdom, see me afterwards. I want to talk to you. We're going to take communion now as the worship team plays.